Stop everything you're doing right now, because what I'm about to tell you could literally change your financial situation this year. Listen, if you're a senior in America right now, if you're living on Social Security and you're barely scraping by every single month, if you're choosing between paying your electric bill or buying your medications, I need you to pay very close attention to what I'm about to share with you. The $2,000 dividend payment that millions of Americans have been waiting for is not dead. Even if the Supreme Court decides to strike down these tariffs. I know that sounds crazy, but stick with me here, because the backup plan they have in place is something nobody is talking about, and you absolutely need to hear this before it's too late. And before we dive into all of this, if you're new here, do me a huge favor and smash that subscribe button right now. I put out videos every single week breaking down the latest updates on stimulus payments, Social Security changes, and everything that affects your wallet. You don't want to miss a single update, trust me on that one. Also, hit that notification bell so YouTube actually tells you when I post a new video, because we all know how the algorithm works, right? All right, let's get into this. Now, let me just be real with you for a minute here. I talk to so many of you in the comments section, and I hear your stories every single day. I know there are millions of seniors across this country right now who are genuinely struggling to survive. And I'm not exaggerating when I say survive. We're talking about people in their 70s and 80s who worked their entire lives, paid into the system for decades, and now they're sitting at home wondering how they're going to afford groceries next week. That's the reality for so many Americans right now, and it breaks my heart. If you're on Social Security, you already know that those monthly checks barely cover the basics anymore. Rent keeps going up, food prices are through the roof, healthcare costs are absolutely insane, and that cost of living adjustment they gave us this year feels like a slap in the face when you compare it to how expensive everything has become. I get messages every single day from seniors telling me they're having to choose between their heart medication and putting gas in their car. That's not right. That's not how it should be for people who built this country. So when the president floated this idea of a $2,000 dividend payment back in November, a lot of you finally felt like there might be some light at the end of the tunnel. Finally, someone in Washington was talking about putting real money back into the pockets of everyday Americans who need it the most. And I know many of you have been holding on to that hope, checking for updates every single day, wondering if this is actually going to happen. Now, here's where things get a little complicated, and I want to break this down in a way that actually makes sense. The Supreme Court is currently looking at whether or not these tariffs that were implemented back in April of 2025 are even legal. They've had multiple hearings now, 3 different opportunities where we all thought they might announce their decision, and every single time they've kicked the can down the road. They're taking their sweet time with this, and nobody really knows exactly when they're going to give us an answer. Could be days from now, could be weeks. Honestly, it could still be a couple months before we hear anything definitive. But here's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, and this is really important, so make sure you're paying attention. Even if the Supreme Court comes out tomorrow and says these tariffs are unconstitutional and strikes them down completely, that does not mean the $2,000 dividend payment is dead and gone. I know that might sound confusing, but let me explain exactly why. The White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett did an interview just recently, and what he said should give a lot of people some real hope right now. He made it crystal clear that if the Supreme Court strikes down these tariffs, the president has the authority to immediately implement a 10% tariff across the board to replace that revenue. We're talking about something he can do right away, without waiting for Congress, without jumping through a bunch of hoops. Just boom, it's done. But that's not even the whole story. On top of that 10% tariff, they also have what's called the 301 authority and the 232 authority. Now, I'm not going to bore you with all the legal mumbo-jumbo, but basically these are additional tools the president can use to pile on more tariffs and bring in even more revenue. So they're talking about backfilling any money they might lose from the Supreme Court decision and potentially bringing in even more than they're collecting right now. Think about that for a second. The administration has already thought this through. They already have their backup plans ready to go. And honestly, knowing how this president operates, if the Supreme Court tells him he can't do something, he's probably going to come back even harder. We've seen this pattern over and over again. You tell him no, and he finds 3 different ways to get to yes anyway. That's just how it is. Now, there's another piece of this puzzle that I want to address because I've seen a lot of confusion about it. If the Supreme Court does strike down these tariffs, there's a question about what happens to all the money that's already been collected. We're talking about hundreds of billions of dollars here, folks. That's not pocket change. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was out in an interview talking about this exact issue, and he said that the Treasury has plenty of money available to issue refunds if it comes to that. Now, logistically speaking, can you even imagine what a nightmare that would be, trying to send back hundreds of billions of dollars to all these different importers and companies? That sounds like an absolute mess that could take years to sort out. And here's the interesting part. Other people within the administration have said something a little different. They've basically said, well, maybe we'll do refunds, maybe we won't. We'll see what happens. So there's still a lot of uncertainty around that particular issue. But when it comes to the money they need to fund those $2,000 payments, the administration seems confident they can get that revenue one way or another. Now, I want to speak directly to those of you who are seniors living on Social Security right now. I know how hard things are. I know that every single dollar matters when you're living on a fixed income. I know you're watching the prices at the grocery store go up every week and wondering how you're supposed to keep up. I know some of you are skipping meals so you can afford your medications. I know some of you are keeping your thermostat way lower than you should because you can't afford the heating bill. This $2,000 payment, if it comes through, could be life-changing for so many of you. That's money that could help you catch up on bills you've been falling behind on. That's money that could let you buy groceries without having to check your bank account 5 times. That's money that could give you just a little bit of breathing room in a world that seems determined to squeeze every last penny out of people who have the least to give. And I want you to know that I see you. I hear your comments, I read your messages, and I understand what you're going through. That's exactly why I'm here every single week bringing you these updates, because you deserve to know what's happening with money that could be coming your way. You deserve to have someone who's actually paying attention to all of this stuff and breaking it down in a way that makes sense. Now, one of the biggest questions I keep getting is about the income threshold. Who's actually going to qualify for this payment if it happens? The president has been very clear from the beginning that this is not for rich people. He's said it multiple times now. This is for middle income and low income Americans, the people who actually need it, not the folks who are already doing just fine. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent mentioned back in November that they were looking at an income threshold of around $100,000 or less. Now, in my personal opinion, I think the actual cutoff is probably going to be lower than that. We've seen with past stimulus payments that they usually phase out benefits somewhere between $75,000 and $100,000. So I'd expect something similar here. But until we see the official proposal, we just don't know for certain. What we do know is that if you're a senior living on Social Security, you're almost certainly going to fall under whatever income limit they set. Social Security benefits alone aren't going to disqualify anyone from this payment. So if you're worried about whether you'll qualify, the answer is probably yes, assuming this whole thing moves forward. Let me take you back to where this whole thing started. On November 9th, 2025, the president made a post that got everyone's attention. He said, and I quote, "A dividend of at least $2,000 a person, not including high-income people, will be paid to everybody." That was his promise right there in black and white. And since then, he hasn't backed away from that statement. If anything, he's doubled down on it multiple times. Every time he's been asked about it in interviews, he says the same thing. A little later this year, that's been his consistent message. Later this year, we're going to get these payments out. Now, I'm not here to make any promises that I can't keep. Nobody knows exactly what's going to happen with all of this. There are a lot of moving pieces, a lot of legal questions, a lot of things that could change between now and when those checks actually go out. But what I can tell you is that the president seems genuinely committed to making this happen. He keeps bringing it up. His economic team keeps talking about it, and they've got these backup plans in place in case the Supreme Court throws a wrench in the works. That tells me they're serious about this. They're not just floating ideas and hoping for the best. They're actually planning for different scenarios. Here's what I expect to happen when we finally get that Supreme Court ruling, whenever it comes. If they uphold the tariffs and say everything's fine, business continues as usual, and we just keep waiting for the administration to announce the official payment program. If they strike down the tariffs, there's going to be chaos for a little while. The president is going to be absolutely furious. We all know that. He's going to make his feelings very well known to anyone who will listen. But then, and this is the important part, he's going to take action immediately. Those backup tariff authorities I mentioned earlier, the 10% across the board tariff, the 301 and 232 authorities, all of that's going to get activated faster than you can blink. The revenue stream might hiccup for a few weeks while they sort everything out, but it's not going to dry up completely. They'll find a way to keep that money flowing because they've already made public commitments about what they're going to do with it. Look, I know a lot of you are counting on this money. I know for some of you, This feels like your only lifeline right now. And I want you to know that I'm watching this situation like a hawk. Every time there's a new development, every time someone from the administration says something about these payments, every time the Supreme Court makes any kind of announcement, I'm going to be right here breaking it all down for you. That's my promise and my commitment to this community. You're not in this alone. We're all waiting together, and I'm going to make sure you have the information you need as soon as it becomes available. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and you've got those notifications turned on so you don't miss anything. Before I let you go, I want to hear from you in the comments section. Are you a senior living on Social Security right now? How would a $2,000 payment change things for you? What would you use that money for? I read every single comment, and I love hearing your stories. It helps me understand what you're going through and what information is most important to you. Also, if you found this video helpful, please share it with someone who needs to hear this information. There are millions of seniors out there who don't know about these potential payments, who don't know about the backup plans the administration has in place. Share this video on Facebook, send it to your friends and family members. Help me get this information out to the people who need it most. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for being part of this community, and thank you for your patience as we all wait for more news on this situation. I'll be back soon with another update as soon as we have new information to share. Until then, take care of yourselves, look out for each other, and I'll see you in the next video.